I knew he made it by his performance. He played one heck of a game. It was really cool to watch to see him do that. But yeah, I knew he was ready for the moment. The way he practices every day, he comes in and makes plays. Like he should be a starter in this league. So I had no doubt.
Is there a different vibe kind of in this locker room now that it is down to the 53?
A little bit. We're ready for week one. We're ready to play a different opponent than ourselves. And we're ready to put some wins on the board. So, it's going to be an exciting time. I know this team is super eager to get out there on the field and just fight for one another.
Before week one, though, you get a nice 4 days off. What are you doing?
I'm going to go check out Penn State this weekend, see the first game of the year. I haven't got back there in a while, so go check that out. And probably play some golf with Charlie.
Are these 4 days of much needed rest and relaxation?
Yeah, for sure. It is probably the only rest we'll get till about December, bye week. So you gotta take it all in, make sure you get your body back ready to go for week one and the rest of the weeks ahead because it's a long season. So you got to prepare, get your mind right. So I think it's a good break for us.
Does it feel different being in the locker room now? Like a year ago, it's all new, and now your experience, you've been around these guys. Does it feel different in that way?
I feel like I adapted pretty quickly. The guys helped me with that, bringing me in, treating me like family. So I feel like, it's a little different. Obviously, I got that first year under my belt, but I feel like I adapted pretty fast.
I feel like last year the locker room was so key for you guys when you had some tough times. Yes. Everybody kind of stayed level. Yeah. How important was that, and how important is that going to be, this year?
Yeah, that was super big for us, and I feel like that was the reason, we got to win a lot of games in a row. Because the locker room just came closer together. We realized that it was one thing that we all wanted, and that was to just win. So I feel like we all came together, and I feel like we have that in this locker room right now. A bunch of guys who are hungry for wins. I feel like we got a pretty tight group.
Thank you. So before week one, you get a nice 4-day break coming up. What are you doing?
I'm just chill, I ain't gonna do too much. I'm vibing.
All right, so just chilling for 4 days. Is this the rest and relaxation that you needed before week one?
Oh yeah, for sure. After this training camp, I need to just chill. You know what I'm saying? Get my legs back so I can fly around week one.
I know sometimes in training camp you've said in years past that you kind of get beat up a little bit. It gets exhausting. How are you feeling after this one?
This one it was it was good work. You know what I'm saying? It was a little hard, but I feel like we got through it. You know what I'm saying? Everybody got better. You know what I'm saying? We learned the game plans. It was in the playbook. Learned all the plays. And I feel like it was a good training camp this year.
What's the vibe like in this locker room now that you do have the 53 here? Is it a little more chill, a little more relaxed?
Yeah, a little bit. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just a little more empty. You know what I'm saying? It's just feel like I don't know, but it's just a little more chill.
So, are you sad about the emptiness? You seem a little like you're feeling something here.
We've been going at it, since April. You know what I'm saying? So when guys leave, you always gonna feel some type of way. You know what I'm saying? But it is what it is. NFL, it's cutthroat.
Perfect.
Eric, good morning. Just from your perspective, what's this week like when you've got to go and make these final cuts? You're working with the staff, then you've got to look through 1,000 different players. I know not all 1,000, and figure out who's interesting. What's that process like from your seat?
Yeah, you know what? It's been a great process all the way around. It's been a collaborative process. It's been great working with coach and the staff. We had some really, intense, healthy conversations as it pertains to the roster because you always first, have to start internally before you start looking to the outside. And so we had several meetings with our coaching staff and just as a personnel group, and then we really rounded that out with meeting with the coordinators and then you have to make those hard decisions as you get down to the 53, and you're really always balancing. Look, what do we have as it pertains to the roster, and what do we have in terms of looking outside the roster? So it's a tough mix. There's a lot of tough decisions that went into that, but no, it was a very smooth and fluid process.
So from the practice squad, you bring back most guys that you had, but Jabril Cox was somebody new. Again, you're sifting through all these players. What's that process? I'm sure you obviously knew about him, but how do you sort of okay, we're thinking, is it more about thinking you want this position, or is it more like this player just kind of stands out?
No, I think as you kind of break down your roster when it's all said and done, you're really looking at, okay, look, we have to fill out, let's get the absolute best 53 players that we can. And then it's almost like you're looking at a whole separate roster in terms of now let's get the best 16 options that we can that are going to help sustain us as we go through the season. And then obviously as we have holes that happen to come in, and then you're going to once again be balancing as we go through the year. Veteran options from the outside versus internal options that we have on our practice squad. So So that's really how it all, comes together, and that's really how it's, again, a continuing balancing act in terms of 53, practice squad, and really having it all meshed together.
Sorry, I'm out of breath.
That's okay. How you doing,
Was
John?
there anybody that surprised you in this process, a player that maybe was kept that showed you a little bit more than you were expecting?
No, and I say that because, look, you have the expectations for all of our players, regardless of where they're drafted. There's kind of a saying, it's not, what when you're acquired, it's what you bring to the table once you're here. So I think the expectations for the guys that we bring on this roster and that have been with us through all the OTAs and the rigors of the veteran camp, and as we get into the training camp, look, you're always optimistic for all the players and hope that everyone has the opportunity to showcase what they can do and have an opportunity to make this roster. So I can't say specifically that there was, one person that really stood out. Certainly, though, you're, certainly excited, though, about some of the young talent, like Mitchell Tinsley, for example, that, did some excellent things as we went through this entire process. I mean, literally from day one, as you go back to, as we had our rookie mini camp to progressing all the way through the training camp and preseason. So, of course, we have those type of stories that come out of it. But again, we're excited about where we are in terms of the roster and as we move forward into the season.
And what kind of things did you learn over the last couple of years that maybe helped shape your thoughts or your decision-making process this year?
Well, one thing is I do think that we're always growing, we're always evolving as we really spoke about our process in terms of how we were able to put together this roster. I do think that we evolved in that manner in terms of just expanding out the collaborative process that we had. I thought that one thing that was really, really great was, we had real hard conversations. We had a lot of just open communication. We had an open forum where everyone was able to speak their opinions about the players and more importantly, have an opportunity to listen to others' opinions as it pertains to the players. So I just thought that having that type of transparency was probably one of the things that we did, I think, even at a higher level than what we had done at the past. And I think that's why everyone is in such a good place with where we are.
Were any positions harder to finalize than the others?
No, that's the thing about when you're doing the 53 because you're always matching positions. So you can say, look, we had a lot of depth at the defensive line room. But then when you get into the 53-man roster, now you're matching defensive line versus linebackers versus DBs. How many are you going to carry, 10 here? Are you going to carry 11 there? And then not to mention, then you have to also look at the other side of the ball. And how does that relate to, the number of receivers you have versus the number of defensive linemen? And so there's all these different mixing and matching parts that take place when it comes to putting together the 53. And that's really why it makes it so difficult. It's not really looking at a position just in a vacuum. You have to look at the totality of the roster and how things match and how they balance out.
And then how much are you looking 2-3 years down the line as you're picking these guys? Like, for instance, your defensive ends, your veteran guys are all free agents in a year. How much are you looking at that as you're forming the roster now?
It absolutely plays a role. You have to look both short-term and long-term when you're establishing the roster. And look, every 53-man roster is going to have a mix of veterans that you're going to be counting on every week as you go through the season. And you're going to have a mix of young talent that maybe isn't ready to help you week one, but as you go through the year, they're going to, as they grow and as they develop, they're going to have roles where they're able to contribute. And then you balance that out with the practice squad where you may have some young guys that you're excited about. That maybe they're just a tick further away from a developmental standpoint, but as we get into week 6, as we get into week 7, as we have injuries that take place, it's a very long season. Ultimately they have an opportunity to come up and contribute to the roster as well.
When you guys decide to go with a young quarterback like Sam, who has a small sample size of playing games, how do you decide or how do you evaluate, hey, this is what we need to do to build the roster around him? What were some of those important moves for you guys this offseason?
Well, I think we've done a lot of those things in place. Obviously, you saw what we've done with the offensive line, with the addition of Andrew, bringing in Nick Gates. I think the transition from Sam to tackle to guard is great. And then, obviously, we've had a battle at the guard spot with Sadiq and Chris Paul, and they've both done an outstanding job. And Sadiq's had a fantastic camp. And so as you look at how you build around the quarterback, the number one rule is let's keep the quarterback upright. We're in a league where, at the end of the day, it's about knocking down the quarterback and protecting the quarterback. quarterback when it's really just that simple. So, and then I think we've put some explosive pieces around Sam as well with our receiver corps and with our tight end group, and then certainly with Eric coming in with his offense. I think we have a creative offense. It's going to be explosive. I think it's going to be balanced, and so really excited about seeing how all those pieces come together as we get ready to kick things off here against Arizona.
When you look at this final roster, what do you see from your pro staff and your college staff? Can you kind of break down, what you're seeing there? Yeah, so it's really interesting because this is an extremely busy time for our pro staff right now. And really as we speak right now, what they're doing is we're just now getting into that phase where we're going to start setting our emergency boards as we get ready to go through the year. So that will consist of guys that we've been tracking all through the preseason. You'll really have a mix of young guys that you're looking to possibly have for workout lists. You'll have a mix of veterans that you may look to sign or that you want to work out. You'll also start to build out the practice squad rosters, and you'll evaluate other teams' practice squads as they come out, and then you'll also rank and stack those, and then you'll look for potential poaches if that's or options that we need to do as we look for possibilities externally versus internally. And then, as we even move further into it, they'll start their advanced scoutings, and so that's a busy time for them. Our college scouts have already been out on the road for a month. Right now, we typically use this month of August as a time for really extensive character background information. And obviously, they're watching the practices, and we're right now kind of sorting through kind of first looks in terms of all the work that we did going back to May. Because, again, for us, this is really a continuous process. It really doesn't stop. So for those guys, they've been out on the road, and we'll get ready to kick off the college football season here shortly, and we'll get into some games, and then we'll get more into the evaluation aspect of it. But for right now, a great deal of what they've been doing is just research. So that's really how the two come together, and that's really how it blends.
I think only 24 players were claimed yesterday, which is like 2%. Does that percentage surprise you at the, not surprise, but what is, when you let players go, are you confident you can bring them back to the practice squad? And then why don't teams take more flyers on guys that are waived this time of year?
Because, a couple of things. One, the whole league, it was amazing really how this played out, but Chris and our pro staff, they did a fantastic job of scouring the league. I mean, we really were ahead of it. I really, we take a great deal of pride of being out in front and not being reactionary to what we're having things happen. And I thought we had a very good pulse and lay of the land in terms of how teams would make their roster moves and how things would shake out when it was all said and done. And so for us, we really were not surprised by what took place. We really identified spot on really the potential names that we were tracking and seeing that was interesting in terms of potential claims for us. And then what I would really say though, the reason why you don't take a lot of flyers is because it's much easier to know what you have from within than to go from the outside. And so that's why, as you really look at what happens in terms of the practice squads, you don't see a lot of turnover. The truth of the matter is that you're really building a 60-man roster. It's not just truly the 53. It's really that additional 16 that you're going to be bringing back. And so, again, there's kind of two different rosters that you're putting together, and that's why you don't see a lot of turnover.
When getting ready for an opponent like the Arizona Cardinals, who have a new coach in place and the quarterback is kind of in flux, what kind of difficulties are there in getting any type of advanced scouting on a team like that?
Well, there are certainly some challenges with that, but look, you kind of are able to match the coaching staffs, and as you look at the coaching staffs, that usually takes you kind of to where some of the philosophies of what you can anticipate. But certainly it does present challenges because they like anything, they haven't shown a lot. Obviously they're in a little bit. We're trying to figure out some things in terms of what they may do schematically. But again, I think when it's really all said and done, we just have to take care of ourselves. The focus is really about what we're doing, and you really can't put too much. You really can't stress too much about what you don't know. What you can do is you can take care of business in terms of understanding what we need to do as a staff and what we need to do, what our players need to do.
And when it comes to player evaluation for the draft, how much cross-checking or crossover, whichever the right appropriate term would be, happens with a given college player? And do you guys have mechanisms in place that maybe there's some conflicting reports, there's additional checks done on a certain player?
As it pertains to,
Like scouting for the draft, like prospects coming out of school?
and are you talking about his character? Are you talking about his talent?
Mostly on the field in play. So like how many different scouts might look at a specific player?
Okay. So in terms of how that kind of plays out, that can vary. I mean, obviously, our top level prospects, they're going to have a minimum of 4 to 5 look. So, you know, as we get to the draft, as it gets to the process later on, and as we get ready to get out to get on the road, once we're really able to identify some of the top-rated prospects, look, we'll have many sets of eyes on those guys. I mean, rarely have there been too many of the top-level guys that either Marty, myself, Tim Gribble, our director of college scouting, or both our national scouts, David Whittington or Jeff Beathard, haven't seen, and obviously in addition to the primary area scouts. So we'll get multiple looks on top-rated prospects, and certainly the guys that fall within that top 100, top 150 are going to have multiple looks, and we take a great deal of pride in that.
Eric, when you're dealing with the coaching staff, Eric Bieniemy, involved this time, obviously new to this group. I imagine he had a voice on regards to the offensive players. What was it like dealing with him, and how does that work when you have the coordinators coming in and pitching for their guys that they want?
Yeah, Eric's been fantastic. You know, obviously, we brought in Wiley, we brought in Pringle, and you know, I think the one thing that is also missed on Eric, he's a fantastic listener. You know, it's not just a communication, just that it's one way. He also does a great job of listening, and I think you know, when you combine those two, it's been seamless. It's been easy to work with EB. And actually it's a joy. So I love getting in, having those conversations with him, and you know, he has the same bulldog mindset as all of us. So I love that competitive spirit about him, and I love his interest in the personnel. And you know, the great thing also is that he's really excited about the players that he's working with. You know, he praised just a couple of days ago about, you know, look how hardworking the group is. It's a smart group. It's a group that, you know, is really eager to learn, and they love to work. And so you know, so it's been a complete pleasure to work with him.
Was there a conversation you had with him that kind of stood out to show you all that? Was it something early on or anything in particular?
No, I think this has been just different steps. I mean, as we go back to when he came in for the draft process, as we talk about our free agency process, I mean, that's the one thing. Again, we have input all the way around when it comes to the decisions that we make organizationally. And so, yeah, again, they're not just about one person or just in a vacuum. You know, we are, you know, take a lot of pride in getting everybody's opinions and getting as much information as we can, and then making decisions from an organizational standpoint.
All right, appreciate it, Eric.
Okay, thank you.